Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using code NEST. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Hello and welcome to the BNB Show. Back at you here. My name is Brandon Kane. That guy here to my left, that's Seahawks. Brendan Nelson to you with our weekly show, looking at previewing an upcoming very important matchup here against the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road at 10 a.m. But Brendan, how goes the day coming off the loss here this week?
Well, they told us the offense would be new and improved, and they were right about half of it, I guess.
They got the first part correct on that. And I think, you and I on both of our channels and the fan base over the last 4 days has no doubt turned over this loss every which way but loose to try to understand it better. We won't go, deeply into this, but I guess just as a kind of some initial, just a couple questions coming off this game and how you're feeling a few days further. There is a little bit of the disagreement, as there always is in the Hawk fan base, on situations, players, what's going on, about how much weight the opening game of a season like this does carry, and how much, this should you extrapolate on into what this is going to be through the rest of this year, or that it's really one where you just, you flush it. It's 1 week. The NFL is weird. You have those bad weeks. We just happen to have a week that was kind of off the rails on the first week. Wasn't all bad, but where do you stand on that? Is there something to take away from this game and that as much, or is that just hey, this is the initial foray and we got to let the situation play out and the story's not told on the Hawks, and things can turn around in a completely different fashion here as we go through the rest of the year?
It's hard not to take away a lot from a game like the one we just played, because it's the only game we got. It's week 1. Like they can't do this to us in week 1 and expect us to not have a strong reaction to it. This isn't week 12 where the first 11 weeks we were good and things were going fine and we were seeing the things we wanted to see. And then week 12, they just randomly no-show. And it's like, okay, well, that was just kind of a weird thing that happened, but we know we're on the right track anyway. And it's not that big of a deal. At the end of the day, some days it's just not your day. You're not going to win every game. You could say that if it was in week 12. If Kubiak cooked up a scheme like that, a game plan like that in a week 12 game after 11 weeks of great stuff, I think we'd all be feeling very differently about him right now. If Riq Woolen had a game like that in week 12 after 11 really good weeks, I think we'd be a little more prone to just say, whatever. It happens. But you can't have it happening week 1 at home against a division rival that is doing everything they can to hand you the game. And they really did. 2 turnovers, 2 missed field goals, 9 penalties, losing Kittle mid-game, losing Jawan Jennings mid-game. I don't know how you can do anything but take away a lot from the way that game went down.
Yeah, I've certainly have felt similarly that it's harder for me to just punt that one. I think it's a good point. If this has been a midseason game and you had gone through a little bit of a baseline, that'd be something else. But it is kind of all we have. You mentioned Kubiak. Any theories on why there was so much heavy shotgun usage in this last game, and that's the sort of approach he decided to take?
I've spent some time thinking about that during this week, and it's really hard to solve. It's really hard to figure out. And the thing is, this isn't like last year. Last year, we had a guy who had never worked in the NFL before. The fact that he was clueless was not that big of a surprise, right? We were, of course, disappointed in him, but the fact that Ryan Grubb did not know what he was doing was not the biggest shock in the world when all he had ever done is coach in college. Kubiak's been in the NFL for a while. He's called plays in the NFL for a while, and he knows what his bread and butter is, and he knows what he advertised this team would be the entire offseason. So it really does boggle the mind. And I've been trying to solve this all week, and it confuses me. One theory that I've heard is that he didn't want to run his traditional stuff because he knows that Robert Saleh knows how to counter his traditional stuff very well. But I don't really know if I'm buying that. This team is not built to play from shotgun. This team is not built to completely ignore play action. And we basically did. We had 1 play action pass the whole game in a game that was close. It was not like we're down by 3 touchdowns the whole game and play action is meaningless. So I can't figure this one out. I am truly stumped this week. And all I can say is I hope that we don't see it again over the next few months. So at the very least, in a couple of months, I can write this off as a fluke.
I hope so. I mean, you imagine if you're going to go down on the ship that brought you there, and it is the under center stuff, it is the outside zone stuff. I mean, if I think you're probably right, it seemed like you maybe overthought it a little bit and got a little ahead of Salah on that. But it's whatever you transition to, he had a pretty good answer for that. So you figure like halfway in the game, go back to maybe what you do and at least lean on what you do as your general strength. Within this. One other quick question in regards to this last game before we're going to pivot this thing over to the Steelers because me and Brendan don't want to talk about this stupid game anymore. Are you on board with the Charbonnet makes that big of a difference back there versus Walker, and Walker is a pale imitation of his once former self, and that Charbonnet is ready to go take the duties and run with it?
Not really. I think that there's I think the main thing I'm thinking is like you want to ride the hot hand a little bit from game to game. Some games it's going to be one guy, some games it's going to be the other guy. But I'm looking at that game, and I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time placing that much on K9. Maybe there are a couple plays where he could have made someone miss and simply didn't, and that is disturbing because K9 usually makes those guys miss. But one thing that I was seeing, looking back at some of those plays, it seemed like Charbonnet was getting our zone blocking schemes, and Walker was getting our gap blocking schemes, and we're just much better running zone. So to me, yeah, you want to say Charbonnet is a little bit better. I could see that. I don't think that's an objectionable take. I don't think there's anything wrong with theorizing that. But I do think that there's a much bigger problem, and that was the run blocking on Sunday just wasn't very good from the interior. And that's way like to me, the K9 versus Charbonnet thing is window dressing in comparison.
Yeah, I agree with you on full on that. I think it's more of coming to their bigger items to deal with, bigger fish to fry than that, and you take care of those, and both backs will be effective. What about the sitting Woolen talk that's out there amongst the fan base this week? That you need to put Job out there, and indeed, Mike's fan the flames on this one a little bit with the we'll see in regards to Woolen starting this upcoming week. But where do you find yourself landing on that one?
It's going to be really hard to do when you just lost Nick Emmanwori for who knows how long, right? He was part of your plan at corner. You may have to kick Witherspoon inside if Witherspoon can even play. So there's a little bit of a domino effect here where it's that much harder because Josh Jobe is probably going to have to play a lot more anyway to compensate for losing Emmanwori. And then what? You're going to go to Shaq Griffin, who is an older player, may not have a lot left in the tank, may not be able to hold up over the course of a whole game. You could go to Darion Kendrick, a guy who was just kind of floating around out there on waivers and nobody really wanted him except for us. Are you going to go to Nehemiah Pritchett, a second-year player with very little experience, who I like? But everything you do is a risk. There's no slam dunk decision here. If everybody was healthy, I would say, yeah, Josh Jobe played a remarkable game on Sunday. And that's one thing that I really don't think can be overstated here. He was great on Sunday. Yeah. That was very special stuff. It was not just the interception. It was snap after snap after snap in coverage, not allowing anything. But right now, with the circumstances being what they are, I think it's kind of hard to even consider that.
Yeah, I do too. You're a little stuck at the numbers game, and the depth isn't the greatest back behind it. You just hope too with that upside of Woolen this year that you can get the good games on the other side of it too with it. So he still got the coverage skills he can bring to play. It was a tough game, and the bad timing here is you're in a contract year. You don't want to put up a perfect passer score rating day as an outside corner looking to get that contract where you're talking about being paid like Sauce Gardner, is in the sport. Same day where Sauce is out there holding it down for the Jets in coverage.
Right.
On DK. So we'll see how that thing goes. Worth monitoring. I think as we go through the year, they probably are still going to play him, but Riq needs to get this locked in, man. You can't have these moments like he's had in the last couple of years at the worst of times. It's just tough for a coach to not know that he can rely on a guy at the key moments in a football game. And I don't think I'm to that place on Riq yet, but I'm starting to get a little bit of worried on that in regards to Riq on that just a little bit.
Yeah, believe me, guys, I've seen the charts. I've seen the Woolen charts that tell you he's one of the best corners alive right now. I've seen them.
Yeah.
I know that there's data out there that says he is about as good as it gets in passing situations. I get that. But it's hard to look at what you saw on Sunday and not come to the conclusion that you can't count on this guy no matter how good the data is because he's a space cadet. And if he doesn't have ball skills, there's not much else there that you really like, right? Because you're already dealing with some deficiencies in other areas. And if he suddenly doesn't have ball skills to the point where Brock Purdy basically punts the ball to him and he still can't come up and make the play, I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do, but I was a big fan of Woolen back in 2022. I loved him. He was one of my favorite players on the team. I think that rookie season was legitimately incredible, but I can't really stand with the pro Woolen people right now. And I know they're out there and I listen to what they have to say. I really do. I listen to their side of the story, but it's just after a game like that, especially in week 1, again, this isn't week 12 where Woolen's been playing lockdown corner for 11 weeks and then he has that game. That's one thing, but it's week 1. Like, I got nothing else to work with here.
Yeah. Well, and it's coming on the heels of last year, probably a bit of his roughest overall as a pro when you take everything from the beginning to the finish on that one too. So it's kind of in conjunction with that. Doesn't mean that he's not still potentially going to be able to give you a very good year this year, but we need him to turn around fast, because the expectation is we need much more from him in that position and how you've set the stage up with this team. So we'll just have to, I think, ride onto this Buck and Bronco a little bit, Brendan, because like you just said earlier, there's not really another option to go to maybe before the trade deadline. If it keeps going in this direction, you can go and make a move for a corner somewhere in that way, but you're probably kind of stuck in this barrel as it is now, and just got to like ride it out and hope you're going to get over the falls safety at the bottom safely.
Yeah, and he could. I'm going to give him the chance to get back up. Like,
I
absolutely.
would too. Yeah, because the upside's still real there with him. The upside of those ball skills, if he can tap back into that year 1 phase like you talked about, are certain difference-making components. Like, you can still then at that point maybe be a negative as a tackler, but at least you're getting the ball skills and taking the ball away occasionally, which is a big deal. But we need that side of it then. What you do good, we need you to do good, because we know that there's going to be the bad with it in addition to that. And that you can do the price of doing business on that a little bit, but not when it overweighs it to the other side, which is where it kind of feels like it's starting to maybe drift a little bit into.
Right.
Well, let's push past this game. I think, like I said, we've talked this game upwards and downwards, left and right, and let's look to some positivity to this upcoming week and some potential for things to get right, turned around, moved into the correct direction here. We take on this Pittsburgh Steelers team, and I guess before we get into some of the individual stuff with this game, when you look at this Steelers team and what you thought they could be, or where your opinion was of them, let's say in early July when you knew Rodgers was there, DK deal had been done. Are you moved off your spot of where you thought they were coming in after kind of week 1, what you saw from them as far as good or bad, or do you think they're pretty much what you thought they were with Rodgers coming in there?
I think that my initial thought was they were going to be a bad offense. Maybe the right way to put it is they're going to be an inconsistent offense. There's no way 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to bring that same energy every single week at his age. Like, he was great against the Jets, right? He did some great stuff in that game, and it was a vintage Aaron Rodgers game. But what I would say is that it's going to be unpredictable from game to game what you get. I don't know. I'm not saying that he's not going to show up this week, but I think it's going to be a wild ride with Aaron Rodgers this week. And some weeks he's just not going to have it. It kind of makes me think of Tony Romo at the end of his career, where some weeks he just didn't really have it, especially off the short week. If he tried to play off the short week, you could forget about it. He could barely get the ball 10 yards down the field. I think you're going to see some of that.
Yeah, I could definitely see some of that. And you do see within the Steelers, there's some good data, and then there's some data that encourages for our Seattle Seahawks in regards to, being able to make some hay. And I guess let's start with the offensive side of the ball for the Steelers first up, because your Seattle Seahawks to me had kind of it's a weird thing, because this is both how it played out for the Steelers to me in week 1. And then this is how it played out for the Hawks in week 1, which is you have those pressure numbers I know that you've heard about. And, Purdy or Niners, the most pressured team of anybody in the NFL week 1, according to the pressure rates, right? Just the pressure. I don't know how much I'm buying into these pressure rates, by the way. The longer that these go with this new pressure rate stat, right? Because sacks, quarterback hits, those have been a standard. This pressure rate thing, I'm a little like, is there an arbitrary nature here? Is there a little bit of a scorekeeper in one place could say that's a pressure, a scorekeeper in another place say, well, that's not a pressure, because like it's not you've hit the quarterback. It's not that you've made the sack and make the tackle. It's like, well, you're close and you affected the play. Pressure. But with that said, you have in Rodgers a guy that they had the 3rd lowest time to throw in week 1 to the Steelers. And he had moments where they were able to make the throws and he could hit some stuff down the field. But then he was under a lot of pressure, wasn't he? And
Oh, yeah.
I look at it before we get to even stopping the run play with them in this game. I go, well, Steelers seem to have a huge vulnerability in pass pro right now. Broderick Jones looks like a nightmare. Fuanga's still kind of figuring it out. This seems to be the place for us with them offensively that we can really attack, especially not needing to necessarily blitz, because you can't blitz Rodgers like McDonald said yesterday. He's seen everything. You're not going to trick him. You're not going to fool him, really. Though McDonald did it last year with the Leonard Williams zone blitz. So maybe he's just playing it like he's just talking Rodgers up and he can come in with all these like flourishes. But do you feel that way as well? That defensively, are you at stop the run first, or hey, no, this is where they're vulnerable, we've got to be able to attack them on this spot, kind of at the forefront?
Well, I do agree with you about the pass protection. I do think that there is a vulnerability there. And one thing about last week that I think needs to be said is Brock Purdy, you got to give him some credit for evading a lot of that pressure. I do think some of our pressure was empty calories, but this is one thing that Purdy is very good at. I'm not a huge Brock Purdy guy, but that is one thing that I think he is borderline elite at, evading pressure with his not tremendous speed, but his acceleration and shiftiness.
Yeah.
That is a legitimate skill that he has. Aaron Rodgers can't do that anymore. If you get pressure on Aaron Rodgers, he will probably go down because he's 41. And I mean, even in practice, we all saw the clips this offseason. The guy can't really move that much anymore. So I do think that there should be some things we can do there that we could not do against Purdy. And that's great. But I don't know. I'm looking at this Pittsburgh running game that was completely worthless against the Jets. They couldn't run the ball at all against the Jets. And I do think that the Steelers are kind of coming into the game one-dimensionally already. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball a ton. I don't think that's going to be a strength of their team this year. So I do kind of want to focus on making Rodgers as uncomfortable as possible.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I know you want to stop the run first and foremost, most teams, but I just watched that tape last week with the Steelers, and I walked away going, I know Arthur Smith likes to commit to it. I don't know if he's got his linemen blocking with the same level of detail-driven nature that he had in Atlanta, where you'd have guys who would, arm on this guy, come down, get a tap on this guy, then come lay the third block at the level here. Like he'd have his linemen doing those kind of like real advanced kind of techniques, playing to play on the run game. I don't know if I saw as much of that where it seemed like they were just trying to get by last week and how they're trying to run the scheme. And they've made some investment on that line, Brendan, but it's not necessarily guaranteed that those investments have come back in full bloom yet, as far as it means that this thing's a dominant group up front. And I just don't think they're going to move us off the spot there. And that's going to give us some real opportunities in this game, because that's what they want to do is run the ball. But, they lose Najee Harris. Warren's fine. But I don't think that Caleb Johnson, the kid they took out of Iowa, has really lit the world on fire as a backup there. So I think you got a little bit of a place here where you don't have to put as much resource like you had to do the Niners, where it's like point of emphasis walking in, stopping the run on that. I don't know if it has to be as much to the degree on this one.
Right. And even though the league is starting to shift against this, I still think we're in a place where at the end of the day, a lot of football games are won and lost on the arm of the quarterback. And ultimately, most games come down to the passing attack, especially at the end of close games. So you want to stop the run, great, but I don't think that's a priority this week. And I don't think Pittsburgh is going to even be trying to run the ball a ton this week overall, based on what they saw in week 1.
No, but it'd be great if you can keep in that run game down early and get them in those third longs with Aaron to really allow your guys to be able to pin their ears back. The one thing that I think was a struggle for us with the Niners and really stood out is that you just let the Niner team consistently get into those third and shorts, third ones, third and twos, third and threes. And Mike can't dial up as much of the stack boxes. Mike can't run as much of the blitz stuff. He's got to kind of play it straight up. And that allowed the Niners to get, I think, more of an inroads to getting those conversions. So, getting him in the third long to me is also going to be a big part of this. And that means stop the run a little bit, but I think I agree with you. I just don't think the Steelers are going to come in here and be going from being the third least effective team at running the ball in week 1 to suddenly becoming, great at it here in this next week in that way. Much like same with us. I think we're still are going to be kind of finding our footing in the run game, though it'll help, Brendan, if we actually run some of the running game under center and not out of shotgun.
Right.
But, yeah, I feel like get after them. Front 4 too, you agree. You don't really need to blitz here. You don't want to blitz here with Rodgers. Just it's a front 4 and then mix your coverages up on the back end by and large.
Right. I think that's probably the right way to play this. I'm a little bit worried about whether or not some of the guys are going to be able to generate pressure. Like I know that people were very high on Mafe and Hall after that game. There were some people that were really talking those two guys up, but Trent Williams might be just kind of cooked is the thing. Like, he is at the age where he could absolutely just not really be a good player anymore. So I'm a little bit wary of that. I definitely want to keep monitoring the situation there before I crown those guys.
Yeah, I as well. I think that there are some moments they had some pressures, but again, the consistency of pressure wasn't there throughout the game. To me, it was a bit of a feast or famine with those two guys. And they were, again, not really getting quarterback hits or sacks within those pressures. You're just getting close to the quarterback, which is, it's a fine stat, but again, it's one that I think that if that's the only one you're going to on it and pointing to, and that they weren't particularly well rated by PFF in this game, either of those two guys. It's not like they went out there and they, according to PFF, they were just holding it down. It's like, so you got to be careful about the flash play here or the flash play there, sending you out in a place of like getting caught up in that versus what the guy did consistently over the course of the game. And I think both those two guys are fine players, Brendan. I know that they're solid players. I don't know if they're good to great players. And I keep coming back again to this team. And I don't know that week one told me something different in this respect. Let's see if it did to you. I'm still not sure that we have any real difference makers on our squad outside of maybe a Jackson Smith and Jigba, maybe a Leonard Williams. I mean, who else is the difference?
Well, are you saying like Charles Cross is an offensive lineman, so it's a different thing? Or because I think Cross is there.
I think Cross had a great opening week one. I think he's on the pathway to getting there. I don't think he's put the money in the bank to where it just goes without saying that you look at him as a difference maker. I'm hopeful of him to get there. And I think he gave you initial great step in week one to getting there. I do. But even if I give you Cross, who's the other difference makers? Jackson, and it just stands out to me above many things that may develop throughout this year. And I'm looking at Hall and Mafe that I just kind of come back wondering, are we still going to kind of find ourselves through this year a little bit, wondering about where are we going to get these difference makers from? Because the guys just haven't seemed to as much developed as the way we thought they would here over time. They're fine players. That's the hard part. It's the nuanced plays, Brand. They're not bad players. They're good players. Mafe can play the run typically good. He had a tough week this last week, but we're reaching that stage, I think, to get to an elite place of things where we're going to start needing somewhere to get some difference makers to elevate here from somewhere. Do you agree?
Yeah, this is why I spent so much time this offseason talking about a Micah Parsons trade. I know it's expensive. I know it's risky. I know it's dangerous, but sometimes you have to force things a little bit to get that big time true difference maker. And look, I know he costs a lot of money. I know he costs some draft capital as well, although I'd say not nearly as much as I thought, right? That trade really wasn't that bad. And I get all of that, but that is priceless, having a player like that you just know on every single third down is a threat to get to the quarterback in a way that Mafe and Hall are just not. And those are the guys who frequently end up deciding who the best teams are in the league. Like, you can build a whole team out of solid players, and we have a lot. We have a good chunk of good players. Maybe we even have some great players, but I don't think we have anybody that's truly like elite. I don't think we have anybody that's at the top of their position. Like, even JSN. Is JSN a top 5 receiver in the NFL right now? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. I don't think so either, no.
Maybe Leonard Williams is top 5 for interior defensive linemen. Not that he played a great game on Sunday, but maybe he is. Maybe. But other than that, it's just not there. So I agree with that. I do think Mafe's good. I think Mafe's good. Hall, I'm a little more with you on. I don't know if Hall can be considered a good player with his one-dimensional nature, with his struggles against the run. But I think Mafe's good. I just don't know if he's any more than that. And that's kind of a similar problem anyway. So it's not that different than what you're talking about.
I think, too, from a trend standpoint, that if you go through this year and it kind of plays out with some similarities to prior years, you get out to 9-10 wins at the end of the year, maybe in the playoffs, maybe you don't. I think one of the things that the team has to put as a priority front as they walk into the offseason and what they've got to be out there looking for is we've got to go add a difference maker to somewhere on this team. We've got to go put the assets to do it, even if it's just to add to one guy into the mix at that point. I think that's got to be one of the things at the head of the stack priority-wise going into this offseason, if things fit to form, right? If it just sort of, fits to the way that it appeared through the week one. There's a lot of time for this to still develop and get better, and maybe a couple guys rise up and the difference makers show themselves, and we get the feeling for that. But it seems to be the next thing we're going to need, to me, Brendan, if we're going to be taking that eventual final step to becoming a team that can be a contender.
And the problem is it's not easy to get those guys, right? They don't become available that often.
They don't.
A lot of the time when they do, it's like a Trey Hendrickson who's on the wrong side of 30, right?
Yeah.
There's like real risk there that he's not a difference maker anymore. That's the special thing about the Micah Parsons availability. The fact that that guy became available was kind of a joke. That should never happen, but it happened, and the Green Bay was the team that got to take advantage of that. So I look at that and I think to myself, that was an opportunity to force things a little bit in a way that may have actually pushed this team over the edge. I think we win that game on Sunday with Micah Parsons for whatever it's worth. I think he cashes in on some of those pass rushing opportunities that you see a guy like Mafe or Hall or even DeMarcus Lawrence, who I think played a good game on Sunday. Don't get me wrong. No, I'm not saying anything bad about him, but I think maybe the Parsons actually makes the play, whereas those guys just get close to making the play.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, man. And I could definitely have seen it making a bit of the difference in that game that was close and came down to just maybe a one guy making a play at the right kind of time, rather than scrambling around for 15 minutes like Brock got to on that final throw. You actually have a guy getting pressure there within, a couple seconds of after the snap, conversely onto the other side of it. So
right.
We'll just see how it tracks. It is something to kind of monitor in this situation with this team as we go through the rest of the year to see how that kind of does develop from my perspective of things.
Mm-hmm.
Shaw, thank you for the $5 donation. Shaw says, I don't like the 50-50 split with K9 and Zach. We don't have a top 10 or even top 15 O-line. I feel going forward, we need to pick one and run with it.
I don't know what the correlation is between going 50-50 with your running backs and not having a very good offensive line. I'm not quite sure what that's getting at. I don't know how one affects the other.
I think it's the thinking from his standpoint, if I should say, is that if you have one running back that's out there 24/7, he knows what to anticipate and what not to anticipate as far as potential failure rates, failure places within the line. Running outside zone, this guy always loses his guy to the inside on outside zone runs because he's trying to stretch himself too wide. I know that from our time in practice and training camp. So therefore, I need to accelerate a little bit faster to get to outside than I normally would have, because knowing that that's the way that that's going to play. I think that he's kind of intimating little details like that going on.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like this season is shot if the offensive line can't run block better. So I feel like if you can't fix that, it doesn't really matter that much about anything else. And there aren't really teams out there that completely lean on one running back all the time. Like that doesn't happen that much anymore. There are bell cows, some of them, like Derrick Henry, Bijan, guys like that maybe. But I don't think K9 or Zach can just get the rock 30 times a game and expect to remain productive throughout the season. So I think you have to continue to find ways to get both guys involved. So I can't say I really sign off on that. I just think the bottom line is the offensive line has to be better, or none of this really matters that much.
Yeah, Shaw, I find myself in agreement with Brendan on this one pretty heartily. I like his idea earlier that he mentioned about going with a hot hand game by game. You have 2 second-round running backs that are both talented in their own unique way. And I think theoretically you have backs that could maybe against one defense, this guy's more of a problem versus this guy who's more of a problem against that defense. And so this is the benefit to me of having 2 really talented running backs, is that you can kind of go with the guy that's the right guy to go against the specific team you're going up against. But all roads lead back to the offensive line and them getting the job done in the run blocking element, them opening up holes, them not allowing penetration. And these are the things that were at the forefront this past weekend. And that's going to stop us from running the ball. It doesn't matter who's out there, K9 or Zach. It's not going to matter. If we can't open up the holes, it just doesn't make a difference. And even for all the people that love Zach Charbonnet in this game, it's like 3.9 yard per carry average. And as you said, a lot of those runs were more of the inside runs coming downhill. A lot of those successful runs he had, Brendan, were on the back of Fred Warner being off the field on that one drive that we scored the 1 touchdown on. So it's one to me that I just keep always coming back to the offensive line myself too, Shaw, and just saying this gets better. These guys will be better. That's the real part to improve. That's the part that's got to get better. And if it doesn't, I again agree with Brendan. We're not going to get a whole lot anywhere this year if we just can't run the ball, because that was your point of emphasis this year. You came in last year, Lockett, DK, JSN, and we're going to throw the ball all over the place. There was that intention to do that a bit. This year, you've come at it from the completely opposite direction. And if it doesn't work, you're not going to just fall back into let's throw it all over the yard kind of city. You're going to be kind of stuck.
Yeah, there's no plan B on this team right now. There's run the ball, get under center, hit play action. And if that doesn't work, or you're not doing that stuff in the first place, it is I don't really know what you can even conceive of doing. Like at that point, it's like you're just probably going to lose. Plan B is a contraceptive as far as this team is concerned right now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's no guarantee. Samuel Carlson, thank you for the $2 donation. He says Jalen Milroe is not ready for snaps. The game is too fast for him right now.
Yeah. I mean, to the credit of Seahawks fans, I have not really seen very many people calling for Jalen Milroe this week. I have not seen a lot of people calling to bench Sam Darnold. So we're off to a good start in that regard. The fan base is, at the very least, they're keeping it chill right now, and I hope they can keep it chill this whole season because we're better off for it. I did have the thought, though, and I want your thoughts on this, because obviously we did have that one Jalen Milroe play early in the game that was odd, right? I'm not going to say that's why we lost, but in a game that close, I like to be pushing for little edges here and there, and that struck me as wasting an opportunity. On the 4th and 1 at the end where we kick the field goal, do you think that should be a play where Milroe gets out there and you can do a few different things with him, read option, QB draw, QB power, something like that? Maybe that's the area he can help this team right now.
So I'm glad you bring up that play, because that's definitely one that there's been a lot of discussion on. I'd like to get your opinion also back on it, so I can understand a little bit of the people that are on the other side of me, if you happen to be on that place of it in regards to the go for it. Would I have brought out Milroe in that moment? No. I agree with this, Samuel, on this, that when I watched him out for that one play, he didn't look comfortable back there. He looked a lot similarly to what we saw in the Green Bay game, which is, and I agree, the game just looks too fast for him right now. It looks like he's not able to keep up to speed with processing what's happening around him. And that just means you got to give him some adjustment time. I know the ideal is to use him as a weapon, but you can't force things to happen just because you want them to happen. It's also got to be that the player's ready and prepared there to go be successful when he goes out on the field. And I think that he was not ready to do that. I don't think that he's ready to be out there. I think that when you only give Sam Darnold 4 passing attempts through the preseason, asking him to walk off the field on the very first drive of the first game of the NFL season was freaking silly. Now, when in regards to this going for it situation, Brendan, and I really want to unpack this one a little bit in the respect of understanding the thought process to the other side, because as I understand it with the coach on any situation running down to the end of the game in a go for it situation, I want that coach to not take every factor in the book and take it down to one thing and then say, well, it's this one thing. I want him to take into account like 10 different items that go into that decision. And it does seem to me like the people that wanted to go for it aren't taking in like 10 items. They're just going, I've got a gut instinct that we should just kind of go for it there. And that's the part where I don't understand it as much. Let's go through this. You have a defensive-minded battle. You would agree that that typically informs coaches. If you're in a tight game at the end of the line, you're not going for it and fourth down if you're in a tight defensive battle on both sides of the ball, right? I'm not saying for this, just typically, right? Not exactly. That's fair. Is it not to say that?
Yeah. I get that generally. I would say that in this circumstance, you'd be thinking about, is the defense worn out, which they may have been at the end of that game. But generally speaking, sure.
Generally speaking, second part, has your offense moved the ball well today? Because you're going to go for it. Part of it's got to be the confidence you have that you're actually going to go and get the first down. Offensively, it was a struggle bus for 4 quarters. So you going for it was far from a guarantee that it was going to be automatic that you were going to then go and then get that conversion. You got Jason Myers that you're paying $6 million a year for, so you knew and hoped that would be an automatic field goal if you went for him. You have a Seahawks defense that, like I said, had been playing well, gotten you multiple turnovers, but then you also have their field goal kicker in the tank. So you get the 3 points. They go drive down the field. You put him in a position to have that kicker come back out on the field again, and he's missed 2 kicks as it is. That's just another, to me, data point that you'd want to bear into this. So I guess from your perspective, if you disagree, I just need to understand a little bit on what are the parameters we're thinking into that decision of to go for it with those other things already considered to the other side of it.
I think that one of the arguments in favor of going for it, and I want to say real quick, my initial thought was that it was a no-brainer go for it because I thought it was like 4th and a foot. I guess it wasn't. I guess it was like 4th and a full yard. Mm-hmm. So that did kind of pull me back a little bit. I still prefer to go for it because I'm just thinking about all the good things that can happen if you go for it and if you get it. If you go for it and get it, You leave your defense on the sideline for at least a little bit longer. You can drain clock. You can force the Niners to use timeouts. You have the opportunity to get another first down before you even get to the end zone. So there's an opportunity to basically completely suck the life out of the clock. Also, if you don't get it, the Niners are getting much worse field position than they are if you make a field goal or you miss a field goal because of the new rules now, where a lot of the time after a score, the other team's getting the ball on the 35-yard line. You go for it, you don't get it. They're getting it at like the 19-yard line, I think. So I'm thinking about things like that as well. So I don't think it's as much of a slam dunk as I did initially. My preference is to still go for it there, but I don't think it's an easy call. And I don't necessarily blame McDonald for going the way that he did. I don't think it's that simple anymore, but I still prefer to go for it there.
And that's just, and it's definitely, you're not alone on that. There's a few folks that were, but I'm pretty ardently on that other side, just because this has been throughout my lifetime. And when they talked about it on the telecast, when they're talking about what a coach goes through in his mind to make a decision at this key moment in the game, they're talking about all of these factors at the forefront in what drives that coach to make that decision in the moment. And, you think about all the good things that can happen, but you don't get any points there as well. And now you've got no points and they've got the ball, finally move the ball up the field on you at the end of the game. And you're just kind of stuck at that point. So it's one to me where I want my guy thinking about a lot of different factors, not just the good that can happen, but also what's led up to this moment in the game to decide this decision one way or the other. And I think Mike did that. But again, there was a lot of people that felt like he should have gone forward. I would have been super angry with him going forward. It was just that in general, there was a feeling for me that like, no, that's the move to make in this moment, in this game where things stand, right now.
Yeah. Sure. It's complicated.
It's complicated. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $2 donation. Jeffrey says, Mina Kimes picked us to win. She hates our offense, though.
Yeah, I mean, look, there is something to be said for the rubber band effect, right? The Seahawks lose in week 1. They really need this win. Pittsburgh wins in week 1. They may not need the win as much. They may not be looking at things that way. That stuff does matter. In the NFL, we see it all the time. I think that there's a big part of this league that some people don't really understand, don't really pick up on, is just that whole, the team that needs it more is just going to come out with a little more fire and a little more intensity. That happens a lot. And it makes up, I think, a lot of the quote unquote upsets in this league. So I don't think it's ridiculous to suggest they can go into Pittsburgh and win. I don't. But hating our offense, I mean, I think everybody hates the offense the way they played in week 1. I think the offense in theory is pretty appealing. I think the idea of going under center, playing with a fullback, playing with 2 tight ends, going run heavy, going play action is appealing to a lot of people. That's the concept. And I think most of us are behind that. But I don't think anybody's behind what we saw on Sunday, where a lot of that stuff got abandoned so we could be a shotgun straight drop back team.
Yeah, I would agree with you on it. I think that the offense we'll see as it's been designed will look really nice when we get to see it, but we just didn't see the Kubiak offense out there. I don't know what we saw out there. It felt like the vestiges of Grubb's offense still having some sort of lingering effect almost. But once you actually run the offense the way it's designed to be run, I think you're going to see it much more effective and you're going to see the benefit of it. It's just he overthought it. It's all got up into Kubiak's head. And I would reckon to guess that Kubiak didn't have one game throughout last season with the Saints where he was only 8% of the time with the play action under center. I would say that that's probably he was probably much higher every single game beyond that. And he's going to learn his lesson, I would estimate, on this one and course correct. Yeah. I also think just in general, the rubber band, we're probably a kind of a tough matchup for where the Steelers are at and what they're going to try to do out there. You have a Woolen that can run with DK and is familiar with DK. Not that DK won't get his, but you've got a Witherspoon in the slot that can handle what you're going to bring them there. They don't run the ball as great. You can bring pressure against a line that's a little leaky. I think defensively they're tough against us. That's going to be hard, but I think we have enough there defensively to keep things at least close in this game to give our offense a chance.
Right. And just to get out in front of one thing that people might say, there has been a lot of work done over the last several years in this league that tells you that play action works regardless of whether or not the run game is effective. Mm-hmm. You do not need to be a dominant run team to have good play action. Play action will work regardless. So Just because we couldn't really run the ball on Sunday does not mean it's okay to abandon play action.
No, and specifically the play action under center, because I would offer to you that the play action out of shotgun can work as well, but it works less effectively if I don't have a read option keeper quarterback. If I'm not holding edges, if I'm not doing, like, it's less impactful. If I got the guy under center, rolling a play action off of that, that's where you see those linebackers take the 3 inside linebackers off ball, take the 2 to 3 steps towards the line of scrimmage every single time in those kind of moments. And hopefully you get more of that in this game, because that's where you can really rip it over the top. You get a JSN running across or over the top and bam, you got it. So I agree. It's effective, man. You just got to stay with it, brother. Dylan Peterson, thank you for the $5 donation, Dylan. I know you had the Cardinals at 6 wins, but now it's looking like they could start 3-0 with Brock being out next week and Carolina this week. Thoughts? I certainly think that there's a higher upside than the 6 wins with the Cardinals for this upcoming year. And if they win a couple more than that at 8 wins, it's not going to be mind blowing to me. And that maybe this thing does set up with Brock being out, that they're in a position to kind of squeeze out 3 quick wins. That certainly is possible. We learned last year, you can start out 3-0 and go through an easy schedule early on, and then you kind of come back down to earth later on. But I have to acknowledge that this puts them in a better position in that way. I will say that I don't think that they impressed me out there at New Orleans in week 1. I had the game as a 27-13. They won 20-13. The questions in my mind that I had with the Cardinals remain questions in my mind. You didn't get any sacks in that game. I know that Rattler was getting the ball out relatively fast, but there's no sacks there that you're getting. There's no pressure with all that investment in the defensive line. And then they're still not throwing to any receivers other than Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride. So I don't know that that's a sustainable model for an entire season in that, especially once you start to play better teams. But hell, you're right. They're definitely on track, Dylan, to be probably at a 3-0 start with Brock out. We definitely we lost the game to the Niners, but we might have sunk their hopes this season, Brendan, when you consider some of the injuries that they have coming out the end of this.
No, McCorkle's good. McCorkle's got this.
McCorkle's got it, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's right, Dylan. You're underrating the McCorkle effect.
Yeah, it would be just like Shanahan to get some good games out of that guy.
Hey, that's who we know now. That's who he wanted over Trey. So he's finally getting what he wants, I guess. So we'll see if he's proven the genius one right on this one with his love of Mac.
Yeah,
Mac attack.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dylan. Shaw with a couple donations, another $5, another 2 below that. Thank you for that, Shaw. The triple dip donos. He says, I know it's one game, but it was hurting to watch us run the ball and not a great rate, and then asking JSN to bail us out on 3rd down when the run wasn't working.
Yeah. It's not the formula. And unlike last year, unlike previous years, there's not, like I said, there's no plan B. There's not anything else this team can do. Like last year, the team could go out there, completely fail to run the ball, and they had Geno, they had DK, they had Lockett, they had even a guy like Noah Fant that could bail them out. They could just come up with something at the end of a close game. They could drive down the field in a circumstance where the degree of difficulty is really high, and they could bail you out. This year, we don't have that. We don't have the receiver talent. We don't have the same quarterback. We don't have the same things that we leaned on last year to carry us through those moments where the team wasn't really functioning. We could have games last year where the team was not functioning as hoped, and we could still win. But this year, it's hard to see this team winning. And I know saying that, I know some people are going to say, well, we were 9 yards away from winning the game. And there is some validity to that. But I just can't imagine this team having any real level of success if they're forced to abandon the run constantly this year.
Yeah, I don't either. It's got to be the way you roll it. I think Shaw too. The thing with the JSN bailing us out, another oddity in this game that I just didn't understand was that Kubiak seemed to have nothing scripted up for anybody else but JSN. It was not just a matter of you working JSN. It was a matter of he was the primary read every time, and he was sometimes where it was almost like Sam had been instructed to hit the back foot and go to JSN. I almost felt like that almost throughout this game, and it's so odd to me that you have no plays in there for Barner, no plays in there for Arroyo, no plays worked in there for Horton. You barely found a way to target in on Cooper Kupp. And that just, to me, as a game plan, you've got to be willing to work this ball around a little bit. It can't just be the JSN show. And just one of the things, again, just didn't quite understand why you'd go that route, because it becomes so predictable and the Niners can start to squeeze down. You saw it by halfway into that game, Brendan, they're running the doubles to JSN. And it's like we made no adjustment to really attack anywhere else. And I just another place again with Kubiak in this game. I don't know why. I don't know what's going through your brain in that moment as you go through this game to keep staying in that lane.
Right. And I don't think we can just dismiss it as, oh, Kubiak's a dummy. He's not a dummy.
No,
he's done this before. Again, this is not Ryan Grubb. I want to stress that. Ryan Grubb just didn't know what he was doing because he had never worked in the NFL before. It's not that shocking. But I watched a cut up of every route that Torrey Horton had in the game. And I don't know if you've seen this cut up or not, but it was all over Seahawks Twitter, I think 2 days ago. And it was all just like clear outs. Like, let me pull the defender so JSN can get open. It reminded me of actually Super Bowl 46, Giants Patriots. The Patriots had Chad Ochocinco on their team. That's how desperate they were, because this was the washed up Chad Ochocinco, very washed up. All he did was run go routes the whole game, and Brady never looked at him once, because the whole point was just try to draw the safety, and you're never going to get the ball, but whatever. Like that's almost what it was like. But Torrey Horton's not like that. Torrey Horton spent his whole career at Colorado State catching those shallow slants over the middle and getting yak. Like I don't know what that was. And I'm not saying Horton played a great game. He didn't get open on some of the opportunities he did get, but I don't think just sending him on go routes and post routes over and over again into a defense that is mostly sitting in cover 2 is going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, to your point, on the cut-ups that I saw with it, that I watched on the 22 with him, there was a lot of also running him into the teeth of the coverage on those deep clear outs. Like, he's maybe in point, but he's also just running right. Like, guys are standing here and he's going into the leverage of the defenders almost at times on some of those clear out plays. And just, it was obvious you weren't trying to work him the ball in the offense at all, but have him be that central decoy, which is fine, but you're only going to work one guy. This isn't hard to kind of figure out from a defensive angle and what you're trying to do if you're going to be kind of hitting that nail over and over and over again like they were. Shaw agreeing with us. He says, yeah, you got to spread the ball around, or he says, should we spread the ball or run the ball?
I don't know why you have to do one and not the other.
Yeah. I think, like Shaw, at the end of the day, we ran the ball more than we passed. In a game where we weren't tremendously effective at moving the ball, we did stick with the commitment to run. We just didn't run the ball well. Spreading the ball is probably maybe the one I'll stay on, because we're going to run the ball. We're going to try to be committed. We're going to be in that 50-50 range. That's not going to be a problem, I don't think, for Kubiak. But can he find some other places to work other guys in with some scripted stuff? You know, Brendan, where's the under center rollouts in space that we saw in the Chiefs game for easy throws out into the flat, easy completions to guys like Oots, or God forbid, the second round pick that you gave up for Arroyo? Having an effing plan for that guy might be nice, right? Like, if I take a guy in the second round, maybe I should have a couple plays in the game for him. Maybe.
Yeah. We're already getting nothing out of our third round pick. You may as well try to get something out of your second round pick.
I don't get that one. Like, you take a guy in the second round and your game one, you've gone through a whole offseason. You've got no plan but a stop route in the middle of the field. That's all you had drawn up for the guy. That's it.
Yeah. He played it was 16 snaps.
Yeah. Just such a weird called game. And that pick looks even weirder in retrospect when that's the 16 snaps and the not targeting him. And, you know, what are we doing? You know, we couldn't have just kept Fant, gone with an offensive lineman and been better at that point. That wouldn't, if that's what your intention is to do.
Yeah, go get Jacob Hollister off the couch. He could have done what Arroyo did in that game. I'm not even kidding.
I know. And I'm not either. Second round picks are valuable, man. And you had those 5 picks, and maybe Arroyo will be great eventually on this. Maybe he will be. Maybe it's a long-term pick that he'll just take a year, and we'll wait till next year. Next year he'll actually show. And it's only one game, but you didn't have anything purposeful in how to target him. It's not just he got one catch. It's that you only got him out for a select number of snaps, and then you didn't even try to utilize him at all. It's part of getting second round picks is that you look to get immediate returns so that you can maximize them on their rookie contract. That's kind of some of the point of that a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's one game. We'll see if it kind of changes going forward, but Barner either. Nothing there for a minute. And this is a very tight end friendly offense.
It makes you miss Shane Waldron. He would run that PA bootleg tight end flat play over and over and over again. And it worked. It was beautiful. It was beautiful to behold. It
did. It's such a great little play to give a quarterback in time and get him in rhythm and have him start to get a little bit of that sweat going. And so spread the ball would be more of that lean, because I think, Shaw, they will run the ball when it's all said and done. But thank you for the donation. HHG, thanks for the $5 donation, HHG. He says, I think we should start mentally preparing for a possible 2-2, 1-3 start. Not saying it's going to happen, but just that we should start to prepare ourselves. It's a possibility. I mean, going into Pittsburgh in my lifetime, Brennan, we've gone in there probably a good 8 or 9 times in my lifetime, and I think maybe we've got one win, and we've gotten some real tough losses where we've had it handed to us going into the old Riverfront and now the new Heinz.
Right. It's kind of like, it's like when you've got that college football team that plays on the West Coast, like a UW, like a USC, like an Oregon even, and then you're playing that 9 a.m. road game in Iowa, and you just know that Midwest field is going to suck all the energy out of your team, and you're already just knowing, okay, we need 16 points to be enough in this game to win somehow.
Yeah.
It's got the same feeling.
Yeah. It just does. It just sucks going out to that place. It's a long flight. It's out there in Pittsburgh. It is what it is. So it's a possibility here, HHG. I think the good news is that if this does start 0-2, that Saints team does not look like it's ready to surprise anybody, that you can get after them. And then certainly I don't think the Cardinals have necessarily shown you week one that they've taken some massive big step either. So at least you have a possibility, if this does, worst case scenario, go to 0-2, that you can right the ship, get it back to 2-2, and kind of hit that reset button and kick this thing back out and get it going. So it's possible, but it's also not the worst case scenario if it moves in that.
That's why you really needed to win that game against the Niners. That's why it's not just one game. It's a game against a division rival where, again, they're doing everything they can to hand you the game. They really are. Like the Niners did not, like you were saying that what's his name on Roundtable, Jesse, was saying that he thinks this Niners team is 65% of the Niners team that went to the Super Bowl. By the end of that game, what were they? With no Kittle, no Jawan Jennings, Trent Williams looks washed up. Are they even 50%?
No, they would have been 40% by halfway into that game with the injuries they sustained.
Right. Exactly.
And that's the big part about this. It's a good important part of this, Brendan, but it's the big important part of this game of the Niners. Not just losing the game opening week. It's that you are not facing a Niners at the height of their powers. You're facing them in a place where they're limping, where they're kind of holding on. They're just squeezing out that little crack of daylight in that Super Bowl window. I mean, this is as vulnerable as they've been the past 5 years, and still, in large part, to me, Brendan, they controlled that football game for the most part from start to finish. I mean, they were moving the clock. We were moving the ball. We weren't. They were staying on the field offensively. We weren't. They dominated the time of possession. So, it hurts that loss, but there's time to get this right. There's time to turn this thing into a place where you get it to 2-2 and get back on your horse. And that is the nice part of the NFL season, is that it can have some ebbs and flows, ups and downs. And there's always time, usually early on, to get yourself righted and moved into the appropriate direction of things.
Absolutely.
Thank you though. HHG. It's a good time here, Brian. Let's do a little bit of our picks here. Let's before we get over to the offensive side of the ball for our Seahawks, and let me set my my thing up here, folks. It takes me a second, Brendan, because the stupid casting thing doesn't go instantaneously. But folks, this is a show that is sponsored by Sleeper. Both me and Brendan are sponsored by Sleeper, in fact. So if you would want to, you could use either of our two codes. You got either Nest, or you can go with LSS. Wait. No, not LSS. Sorry, that was Jesse's one. Yours is
SBN.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh, SBN.
Why are you still muted?
Hello. Test.
Huh.
Can
you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You
can hear me. Yeah, you're not coming through for some reason.
Whoa. Okay. Hold on one second.
Bear with us, folks, for one moment.
Hello?
No.
Okay, this is my webcam microphone. Is that better?
Do you want to try to pop out and pack back in?
Yes.
See if that... A little bit of issues here. Sorry, folks. Stuff comes up sometimes. Issue-wise, we'll get Brendan back in here, though. Hopefully everything's okay for you guys on my side here. Can hear you both? Okay, so you can hear Brendan, but I just couldn't hear Brendan. Okay. See if maybe something happened on my... Hello?
Test.
Maybe it's mine on this, Brendan. 1 second. me try to change up my headset.
People in the chat are saying they can hear us both. So yeah.
Hello?
Test.
I'm not getting anything. Is it showing you talk? And they're saying they can hear you, so they say we can hear you both. But
the show's not going to work if we
need Brendan to stick the audio visual play action. So I don't know what just happened here. You guys are hearing me, but suddenly now I can't hear anything. Hold on.
Okay, we continue to.
On Brennan.
Okay.
Try it now, Brennan.
Test.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, guys. We got it back. I don't know what happened. My I've gone with new Bluetooth, Bluetooth, you know, and so
I've been using that when I work out, and it's not great. I'm not impressed.
Just trying to get off the stupid thing I got on my head here with this thing. Okay, so let's get over here. We'll let's do the sleeper picks here. Thing up.
All right, let's reset,
folks. Reset. Technical difficulties here, but we're getting it here. And Brendan's be off the screen for just a second here. But Brendan, what was your code again on that?
My code is SBN. Seahawks Brendan Nelson acronym SBN.
Awesome. And share screen. Okay. So we're going to give you guys some picks here today that we're going to go through, me and Brendan, on this upcoming game for our Hawks. And let's give them some good selections. Again, use his code or use my code. Get a matched up to $100 on your first deposit on this one. And so you get $100 from either me or Brendan using our code in there on the initial deposit, $100 in your pocket matched up. But Brendan, I've got my one first pick I'm going to take. I think this is a DK Metcalf setup game for him to have some revenge on this one. So I've been going with the 61.5 over on DK. What's your next pick? It's got you muted.
Okay, are we good?
Yep, you're good now.
Yeah, sorry about that. All right. I would go the over on JSN as well, because apparently we don't like throwing the ball to anybody else. And I do suspect we're going to need to go for it a little bit. I'm a little bit worried about playing in Pittsburgh, but 65.5 yards, JSN can do that. He can do it.
All right. I'm going to go with Jaylen Warren with 12.5 receiving yards in this, Brendan.
Okay.
Right there. I think that's pretty juicy. And then what is your fourth one?
Let's go with Calvin Austin under 38.5 right there. Let's go with the under there. I think this is going to be a DK Metcalf game, like you said. So therefore, there's less to go around for a guy like Calvin Austin. There
we go. So there is your picks over on DK, over on Jackson Smith, over on Jaylen Warren, under on Calvin Austin's receiving yards. $5 bet here. You can 8.22 times your returns on these picks. Get them right. Go make yourself a little bit of some cash here this week playing Sleeper. They're sponsoring both me and Brendan's show here throughout this upcoming year. They've been so kind enough to do that. You can use either of our two codes on that. And again, match up 100% of your first deposit. But thank you to Sleeper for sponsoring both of our shows. And let me get back over to here with you, Brendan, here.
All right.
It's much appreciated.
All right. Check out Sleeper. If you don't, you're missing out.
Check out Sleeper. And again, Washington State, I know there's been some issues in using it in the state right now because of some of the laws. I'm being told in October it's supposed to open up for you guys. So get in on this now. Get used to it now, because October you're going to want to be ready to roll when this thing fully does roll on out here for the state. And we're going to finally be able to have some fun out here a little bit in this respect. You don't have to be in a casino anymore, Brendan.
Yep.
Let's get over to the offensive side of the ball here. I think we have covered a lot of what's at play with this team and what they are going to kind of need to do this upcoming week against the Steelers. We've talked about, more of the under center stuff, more of the play action from under center. We need to diversify how we use this ball, where it's not just going to JSN on 13 targets, but that you're able to this is the essence of this offense, is to work it all over the field, not target one guy and just hammer that. When you look at this matchup, though, what is maybe the biggest key for you when we've got some smaller keys, but is there a bigger key for you with our offense dealing with that defense, and that you're looking for that's going to be really the big thing that's going to decide whether or not we can find some effectiveness here?
Well, I think that the most important thing is being able to run block, because we didn't do a very good job of it on Sunday. I think that the interior in particular, those three guys in the middle, although it seems like it's one of those weird things where my initial impression watching that game was that Anthony Bradford was playing really badly. But after looking back at it, I don't know if that was the case. I think he actually probably played okay. I don't know. It's just one of those things where maybe I'm conditioned to blame him for everything wrong that happens. But after looking back at it, I didn't mind what I saw so much. But you wouldn't call it a dominant performance up front, and some dominance up front is kind of what this team needs right now. But the main thing I'm thinking about is this is not going to be the same competition level that the Niners gave you. The Niners, they've got Alfred Collins, CJ West, they've got Kalia Davis, they've got Jordan Elliott. These are guys who are either journeymen or rookies in this league. They're not remarkable players on that interior. Now you're dealing with Cam Hayward. Now you're dealing with some guys who can actually get in there and do some real damage to you. So the competition level went way up, and you didn't exactly pass the test against the weaker competition last week. So I'm worried about that. I'm not excited about that. And also, I think the pass protection was good last week, right? Darnold did not get hit that much. Darnold got hit a couple times. Obviously, he got sacked at the worst moment, but even that is kind of just one of those plays where Bosa just decides to put the team on his back. But the thing that stands out about the Niners, they've got one guy that can get at the quarterback, right? They got one guy that can consistently get to the quarterback, and that's it. The Steelers are not like that. They've got a few different guys that get to the quarterback. So how are you going to handle that obstacle? How are you going to handle a challenge like that? That's something that I'm very interested to see. And basically, I guess it just all comes back to the play of the offensive line. Like, I really want to see those guys in a much more difficult test this week.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to come down to run the ball, because you want to not stay into those third and longs that you were in last week, which is going to give those Steelers pass rushers more opportunity to get to you, and third and shorts. And one thing Darnold did well, and I think Kubiak did do good in last week's game, was getting the ball out of his hand fast. You didn't always love just picking the one thing to JSN every time, but you didn't hold on the ball too long. You didn't put the offensive line in a precarious situation, having to block for too long with that. I do think there's some vulnerabilities with the Steelers defensive line in that middle. Whereas Hayward last week, coming off a training camp where he didn't play as much, he didn't look like kind of the same player he's been in recent years, 36 years old. He's not as much able to handle in there playing like nose tackle and just he's going to rock that. This is important because they lost Derek Harmon. And so what they're doing is they're trying to take Keanu Benton and move him now into more of a nose tackle role at 310 pounds. They've got their backup out there rocking, I think, as well, nose tackle. So they might be down a guy there as well. In addition to that, so they're a little lighter on that interior of that defensive line in the trenches. And that's where really, if you're looking for Charbonnet, downhill, gap stuff, this may be where you can kind of get after them a little bit in the rushing attack. The Jets were able to find some hay on this in this very same way. And so I would look to try to, if I can, in the running game especially, is attack up in that middle like that and test them out there to see if they are going to be strong enough to be able to stand up, because they weren't last week against the Jets team that does have a pretty good rebuilt offensive line there. They've got some talent on that line to do it. Breece Hall is a decent back there to get it done, but I think you've got the horses to do it too and to take advantage of that vulnerability.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I will say that the Jets are able to stress your defense in a way the Seahawks are not, because they have the dual threat quarterback. I am mindful of that, but yeah. I still think you should be able to do some stuff on that defense. It doesn't look like it's going to be very good this year.
Yeah. And to your point, that definitely caught the Steelers themselves, that it caught them off guard, the rushing element of what Fields brought, which is kind of odd because the guy was on your freaking roster last year. But it did seem like they didn't prepare as much for that stuff with him. And you're right. You're not going to be able to bring that stuff into play like, they kind of would. I look at the rebuild secondary. Ramsey was feisty last week or in around on some things, but I do think that there's some places in the secondary you can get after as well. Darius Slay is definitely getting up there. They're relying on a lot of aging parts in that secondary at times right now to get through. They're not going to have Deshaun Elliott. I think he's not going to be in this game.
He's out. He is out.
And I think there's one other injury. There's Harmon and
Harrison. There's Harrison.
Right. So
and Porter Jr. may play, but they're not sure.
Yeah, he's another one on the line with it. So, and Porter's been a good corner for them, even just in his second year. So you could be getting a little bit of a lighter defense on this in that respect of things. But like we saw last week with a Bosa, just having a guy like Watt is that kind of equivalent player out there who can just come in at the worst times of games and just wreck shop on your butt. It's enough. It can be enough in itself for a Steeler team on that. So maybe a plan of attack to do a little more chipping this week, Brendan. Can we get some more chipping, please? Yeah, I see Bosa in that wide freaking 11, and it's like if you just brought a chipper and kicked his butt inside off the chip, maybe Lucas is better able to control that block.
You're not going to target your tight ends in the passing game anyway, so
that's true. Like if you ain't going to use them, at least put them to work somewhere, right? Get him digging ditches or something, right?
Absolutely.
So I really do, though. I will say I'd like to see a little more commitment this week versus last week on that. I think that they just thought, well, we're getting the ball out of his hands so fast we don't have to chip. But like I said, if you're not going to use him, and this is the one guy that can kind of wreck you a little bit, maybe a little bit more of a, just it doesn't be 24/7, but just a little bit more of an onus on let's get him some help over there. Let's chip it out a little bit here and there because they're going to attack in the same way. They're going to test Lucas out on that side in the same way, especially with cross playing so well onto the blind side.
Right.
So maybe at least the benefit there is you can see it coming, I guess, potentially.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, do you buy the theory that Darnold was kind of getting tunnel vision in that first game? Do you think there's a little bit of that going on?
No, I think it was training wheels. I think what it was is that they just Kubiak had basically instructed him to be going through his kind of the first reads that they were maybe a little worried about the Niner pass rush in the week one, and that they wanted to see, it's just get the ball out of your hand fast. I think it was more of that. That's what was going on, and that he was instructed. I don't know for sure though. It could have been that just he got tunnel vision and locked in and laser, but he was doing stuff with the Vikings last year, which was multiple reads. He was doing stuff with the Vikings where it wasn't just get the ball out of your hand as fast as humanly possible every single time. And it wasn't like the Niners were necessarily blitzing a ton to drive him to have to like go to the hot and get the ball out of his hand. I mean, they were showing some stacked boxes, but they didn't blitz you crazy. So I'm not really sure on that, but I do think that Kubiak came into this with a very safe game plan. I feel like you just kind of played not to lose offensively, and you lost. That's what happens in football. Defensively or offensively, if you go into that mode, that's what's going to happen is you get the opposite effect.
Right. I agree with that.
Shaw, thank you for another donation, another $2 donation. Says K9 is the running back one. He can run and catch. Give him more playing time. I'm going to ride and die with K9 down to the end on this one. The level of criticism lobbed at me was just, I find it hilarious. I really do, because it's just like people aren't going back and really looking at the tape on this. They're just kind of going with what they emotionally feel coming out the end of the game. And going back and watching the all 22 tape, he was not getting any holes. There was not him turning some hole down and that he just sucks and he has he's Stevie Wonder out there with a football in his hands. It is not the case. It's just, it's one of those narratives in the Hawk fandom right now that just will not go away. And I just think it's really unfair to Walker. How about we just have one time we show a game of him having some good blocking, and then let's see him with the bad vision. Let's see him be ineffective at that point. Then we can raise those flags. But until I see that, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this.
I think these fans have forgotten how good he can be because it's been a while since we've seen it, admittedly. But what's he supposed to do? On a lot of these plays, I don't know. You want to argue that Charbonnet played a little bit better, maybe had a little bit better vision on Sunday? Okay, I can see that. But the thing I come back to, and I don't always trust PFF on everything, but they weighed in here and they thought Charbonnet was like 3 or 4 points better than K9 on a 100-point scale.
Right.
So that tells me there's not a big difference there. And the reason why you couldn't run the ball went well beyond the play of any one or two of your running backs.
Yep. I saw it. And that's exactly what I said on Sunday to people when they're making this case. I said, watch what the PFF scores are going to be. They'll be within a couple of points of each other. This is getting overstated way too much. And it's not the problem that people are getting kind of obsessed with on it a little bit. But should Walker be able to break some more tackles at times, like the catch he had out in space where Winters comes up and takes him down in the open field? Like that's got to be the kind of play Walker does break. And that's what he's in here to do, is to devastate on those kind of plays and at least go get 7 or 8 yards. You don't break the first tackle and the second guys get you, but you got it some yards. You don't get hit at the line of scrimmage and you're brought right down. I do believe there's a little bit of sometimes with him of almost kind of a tackle magnet thing sometimes going on where it's like in the last 2 years, especially, where like to see him a little bit more in some of those opportunities, break some tackles when he's got the opportunity to do so. But with that said, my man was getting hit after the carry, after the handoff a couple times this past Sunday, and you're not going to do anything if that's the case as a back.
Yeah, one theory I heard, like I said, is that we used all the zone stuff with Sharbs and we used all the gap stuff with K9. I don't know if that's true or not because I haven't gone through it, but maybe there's something to that. I don't know.
See, I don't know if that's the truth either, because a lot of the runs were to the edges that had the look of a wide zone, outside zone with Walker. And part of the reason that he was having the penetration and that he's having the negative yard plays is because you're trying to go to the edges, which allows more penetration. When I go downhill, there's less penetration. So more of the Sharps runs were coming downhill at people. Hey, just get downhill. And that wasn't allowing, just to my eyes on it, wasn't allowing as much penetration. And again, the one key factor is where Sharp did the majority of his work, where he got the majority of his yards on the ground, came when Fred Warner was out of the game, and Walker didn't get those same carries against the Niners when Warner was out of the game. He makes a very big impact, that guy, when he's in there.
Oh yeah.
And Charbonnet got a benefit off that in this game a little bit. Dylan Sosa, thank you for the $10 donation. Dylan says, do you think Clint didn't call his offense because MVS went over there knowing the playbook, and also the Niners run the similar offense so that he tried to catch them off guard?
That's been a fairly common theory throughout a lot of this week, I think, from fans. The MVS thing, like that kind of stuff happens all the time in this league. I feel like you got guys going from one team to another with the some inside information. I feel like that happens a pretty decent amount of the time. So that seems a little bit hollow to me. The idea of the Niners running a similar offense, so trying to catch them off guard, I could see that. I don't know if that makes it okay to completely abandon your identity when, again, you do not have the personnel to abandon your identity. You have one really good receiver on this team. You have multiple good running backs. You have an offensive line that in large part is built to run block, like most offensive lines are, to be perfectly honest. So I don't think that's a good excuse to abandon everything that we talked about this offseason in terms of under center, play action, running the ball. There is, I'll say it again, there's no plan B. You can't just say, oh, we're just going to be an air raid team today. We don't have the players to be air raid. We don't have the players to be a shotgun team. We just don't.
Yeah, I think, Dylan, it's hard for me to see the MVS side of this, that he came in there and he was providing something that was going to be so substantial to the Niners team. I think that there's definitely some help he can provide them a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be this, they now know your whole playbook kind of aspect of it. I think that you are right on something here, Dylan, and it sounds like Brandon agrees on this, where there was a little bit of the, I know, we know, I know, we know, I know. It's a little bit of that back and forth, and you end up in shotgun 70% of the time. Like you overthought it a little bit from Kubiak's standpoint of things, rather than just, here's my offense, let me execute my offense. It became like, well, maybe they know that I'm going to do this, so I know they know that I'm going to do that, so I'm going to do this instead of that. And I'm going to be so freaking, clever with this because I've gotten 3 steps ahead of them. And he got 1 step too far, I guess. But it did seem like an overthought game plan, especially when it was run so differently than the Saints offenses from last year and what I was watching from them, where it didn't, when they got behind in games, they'd go to shotgun and they go to heavy amount, but you were in this game throughout. You had lead at times. It wasn't a game that required you to have to be in that as much. And so I just think he overthought it a little bit, Dylan, on it. It was an oddity at that. Again, you have a whole season of the Seahawks in shotgun with similar personnel last year and seeing it didn't work. I don't know how he looked at that film from last year and thought, no, it'll work this year. This will definitely be the winning formula here now.
Yeah. And one thing I want to say, speaking more generally real quick, the Seahawks need to run screens. The Seahawks do need to run screens to take pressure off their offensive line. So the solution is not, oh, we can't throw screens, because that was also a big topic coming out of this game, right? The screens were a disaster. We just need to learn how to run screens well. We cannot throw all our screens out of the playbook. We just need to figure out how to do it effectively.
Yeah, I think that it was the one screen play to Jackson Smith where you lost 8 yards. It was just such a big, it was a little bit more of like slow developing play, weird kind of screen kind of pass you chose to go. I think the tunnel screens, the running back screens you throw to out in space, kind of the slip screens out to them quickly in space. I agree. I think you got to utilize that stuff a little bit more. You can't bail out of it. It keeps the defense from pinning their ears back, which is it's something I'd be worried about, because this line's not going to be able to pass protect well, I don't think, if they're asked to have to throw at a high volume approach, or the defense knows a pass is coming. Like, if that's not going to be a good prerequisite for this offensive line to find success. So I think that just you overthought it a little bit last week. Go back to your fundamentals, go back to the basis of this offense from a Kubiak standpoint. And if you fail with that, then you fail with that, but fail with the thing that is the philosophy that drives this system. Don't fail it with the philosophy that drives the air raid system. That's kind of silly, Right. And that's what we did last week. Very kind of you, though, Dylan. Thank you for that. So offensively, we got to run the ball in this game. to me. I look at it as the onus is going to be as much on running to the A and the B gap as much in this game, because that's where some of the vulnerabilities lie with the Steelers. I think you get after Highsmith a little bit. He's a slight undersized guy, a little bit, that one edge on his side, but Watt's a monster.
Right.
They've got pretty good linebacker play. Peyton with his what's the kid's name? Peyton
Wilson.
Peyton Wilson with his no ACL having knee out there holding it down for them. And Queen gives him a bit of an up and down play. With Queen, it's like he'll give you 2 plays and a bad play from the linebacker position. That's just kind of who he is. Do we move the ball against this team this week, Brendan?
I'm not feeling a big game. I know that. I'm not feeling a big game. Also, there's some stuff in their secondary that's pretty good too. Like I thought Jalen Ramsey looked good in week 1.
Yeah.
I thought that, Minka Fitzpatrick is a nice little player. I think he's out there for him.
No, Minka got traded.
Okay, who am I thinking of then? Who's the safety? Well,
I think it was Minka. Minka was the guy that was there.
I thought they had another high-profile safety. Shoot, who am I thinking of? So, whatever. So Ramsey looked good in week 1. He might have a little bit of a resurgence here, especially in a home game. That's the kind of the definition of a guy that you would expect would show up more for a home game than an away game. And I'm just looking at the fact that they can get pressure from multiple guys. I'm looking at the fact that they've got a guy like Cam Hayward in the middle who's a really good player. I don't know. I'm just not feeling it. And it has as much to do with the circumstances as it does the other team, right? You're playing in Pittsburgh. You're going to be low energy a little bit. It's a 10 a.m. start. It's just tough to overcome. So I think they're going to produce a little bit more than they did against the Niners, just because their production that game was so anemic. But I don't think it's going to be anything stellar.
Yeah, I probably see a very similar on it. I think it was Deshaun Elliott you were thinking of as the other safety who's going to be out in this game.
Okay, thank you.
That was the other guy. So, and they're going to be going with Juan Thornhill and Chuck Clark. They got Jabril Peppers. They signed this past week, got it released. So, he may be in the mix a little bit here, but you do have some vulnerability, especially if Porter doesn't play within that secondary on the injury front. Darius Slay, a little bit older. You can probably get after him a little bit too. So there is a little bit of some vulnerabilities on this defense. Offensively, they're a little bit more stronger and at full capacity, but defensively speaking, I think that does provide you some inroads. So let's get down to a bottom line on this, Brendan. I think that you're looking at a game that is tight. I agree with you that you're going to get more points probably put up on the board this week. Defensively, maybe not able to hold down things quite so thoroughly. I'm going to go with like a 23-20 game myself for the Steelers when this is all said and done. But do you see the Seattle Seahawks pulling off the upset on the road?
I mean, I give them a chance. I do. Yeah. I give them a chance. I'm going to be open-minded here. Again, it's that rubber band effect where one team needs it more than the other team, and that ends up carrying the day. But my pick was 20-17 Pittsburgh. I just think it's too much to overcome. I think trying to play in Pittsburgh, it's just not going to happen. I don't think this is the week we put it all together. Maybe we feel better about the team after the game's over, because I was feeling pretty negative about the team after the Niners. Maybe we come out of this game and we lose 20-17, but I'm at least feeling better about where the team is compared to last week.
And so we're both in kind of the same place, which is an unfortunate place of not being able to predict a victory. But let's give them a positive spot on this, even though we don't necessarily see it as a tight game and we see Steelers just barely edging it out. But let's give a point of positivity on it. Let's be specific about this, Brendan, so we don't get to say, well, if the Seahawks run the ball well, they'll win on Sunday. Give me one specific thing that happens, be it a player or some just turn of this happens and the Seahawks will win this Sunday.
I'm going to say if we can get at least 3 catches from 4 different players.
Ooh, I like that. That's a great one, Brendan. Fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm talking real catches, not, Cooper Kupp caught the ball and lost 8 yards. Or K9 caught the ball and got swarmed by 8 Steelers for no gain. Talking about actual productive plays where we spread the ball around. Because again, after watching that first game, if you're the Steelers, how are you not putting either Jalen Ramsey on JSN the whole game or double teaming JSN the whole game or both? That should be a no-brainer. So you're going to have to find other ways to do it.
Yeah, I think you got to anticipate that. You do. If the Steelers would be silly not to do it with the 13 targets on the 23 passes from Darnold last week. They're showing you this is the way it's going to go. Mine's going to be that if you keep DK Metcalf under 60 yards receiving in this game, I think you're going to stop the run. I don't think the Steelers have enough of a receiving core on the other side of that to do the damage. And that if you're able to keep that part hemmed up, you can come away with the victory in this one, because they're going to be leaning on that heavily. And even over just a little over 60, it changes my outlook on this. But if you keep them under 60, I think you can go and get this victory this week, Brendan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, if Woolen wants to start getting himself back into people's good graces, this is a great opportunity.
You're right. Shutting down Metcalf would certainly, because a lot of people are bitter about that. If you get him shut down, that'll certainly get people starting to turn in the right direction on you. And that's the beauty of the NFL. As low as people might seem on you this week, Riq, after the week you had, that you can still turn all of your travails around. You can still go out there and earn that contract this year. Just got to lock it in, man. Just got to keep yourself connected to the process, play in and play out. Can't have those little mental notes or mental farts that just kind of come along every once in a while, because, boy, it's going to be brutal in getting paid if people can't kind of quite trust you in that way. And he is a good player. He's a good cover guy. He will limit the amount of yards you can get out there receiving when he's covering you throughout the day. It doesn't matter the receiver, but got to just clean up those brain dead moments that will pop up from time to time with him.
Right. I agree.
Well, folks, do me this favor if you can for me. If you're watching on Brendan's side, hit that like button, sub on up. If you're on my side, hit the like button, sub on up. We're within about 175 subs or so on my end here, Brendan, of hitting 20,000 subscribers.
Right.
So would really appreciate you helping us get there, as we're right knocking on that door, breaking through on that side of it. Long goal for me here on this side. As well, just one more reminder, this is a show sponsored by Sleeper. Use my code today, NEST, or Brendan's SBN. SBN, sorry, SBN. I see Seahawks Nation. I got the SBN thing in my head from that with it. But so SBN or Nest get you $100 matched on your first deposit, $100 in your pocket from me and Brendan to you through the Sleeper app, and you support the channels at the same point in time. So Sleeper will be sponsoring us throughout the course of this year. We get you some good picks on that side of it. We really do thank you guys for watching. We'll be doing this all year long, every Thursday at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So be on the lookout for it. Hopefully, Brendan, we get into next week. We got ourselves back to one-on-one. Things are feeling a lot better. The vibes are back in the right kind of place, and we can start to look at this thing, making progress, getting some momentum to where we're hopefully looking for this team to get to by the end of the year. But I just want to reiterate, and I know you feel the same way on this, because sometimes people, when we have to turn over these negative things, can get lost in that there isn't the optimism there. There is still the optimism from my standpoint on this with this team. I'm not moving off my spot from where I had them in the preseason, as far as maybe it adjusted, maybe a game, maybe instead of 11 wins, I'm thinking more 10 wins, but I still think that this is a playoff pushing type team. I think that if you get to 10 wins, you're getting the playoffs. I think that it's still a team that has the potential. I don't know if I see as much a team to get to contending status this year with so much that seems to need to be cleaned up, but it's one game. Who knows, right, Brendan? What are your thoughts on that?
Whatever you thought the Seahawks were going to be able to accomplish this year, they can still accomplish it. Like if you thought this was a 12-win or 13-win team, they can still do it. It's not going to be easy. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but whatever it was that you had in your mind for this team this year, it can still be done.
It can indeed. So keep the faith, my fellow Seahawks fans. Look at things realistically. Look at it with sober eyes. Don't try to dress up what is the not, but at the same point in time, it's still a damn talented team. You still got a lot of good parts to work off of. 3 straight seasons of winning years. Just got to get some of these things cleaned up, get the ship right a little bit, and maybe we can do that this week out there in Pittsburgh. Feel good to take down Rodgers again, wouldn't it? It's always nice to take down Rodgers. It always feels just a little extra nice on that one, doesn't it? Especially after people got a little too excited about one good game. Yes. Yeah. They're flowing the praise over the top on him with this one. And, he won that game against the Jets. That might've been almost his Super Bowl in certain respects of things. So we'll see how he plays this upcoming week against our Hawks. And I'll tell it, felt like McDonald last year had him kind of bagged up pretty well as far as forcing him into a lot of just those 9 route throws where he just kept trying to throw the ball deep. Like he didn't have any other answers as far as what he was seeing from the coverages. So, maybe Mike can pull out some of the playbook from last year and use that again against Rodgers this week. We shall see. Right. I like it. Well, thank you for watching, you guys. We really appreciate it. And we will be back in just a week, hopefully, to talk about that win. Hopefully, you're keeping the faith out there in Seahawks fandom. I thank you for all of the donations and support here to the channel today, as you guys are tremendously kind in that way as ever. So we will be back soon, hopefully reporting that win. Keep the faith, my fellow Seahawks. Let's go get this dub this week. Let's turn this thing around, and let's start looking at the season moving in the right direction. Appreciate you watching, but please don't you ever forget, even after a loss, most especially don't you ever forget. Go Hawks. Go Hawks.